Welcome everyone to this amazing webinar. I'm glad to have Rosalyn Reed. So I met Rosalyn recently in the last year and a half, and we've had some really productive conversations, and we thought we need to share this with more people. This will be beneficial to so many people, and it's amazing. And we've juggled our schedules, timetables, looked for time, and all that. Eventually, we finally found time, and I'm very grateful to have her. And so we'll jump right into. I'll allow her to introduce herself. But Rosalyn has done so many things. Now, if you don't know me, I'm chartered accountant. I'm a business consultant. I love working with businesses, connecting businesses together, connecting people with opportunities, but also I have some online courses and I do some cross-border currency work with businesses, and that's so much of it. So, without wasting too much time, Rosalind, welcome to this conversation around adapting to the future, navigating career success.
Thank you, Baba. And what a title it is. So, yes, like Baba said, my name is Rosalyn Reed. I'm really grateful. I'll be doing this webinar podcast with Baba. So, my career path, I mean, what I do now is similar to Baba, business consulting, mentoring, coaching people, whether it's in their personal life or business or all career paths. I'm also into the well-being space as well because, as well as earning our money, we still also got to, which is most important, look after our health and well-being. So I've many years experience. I know I look amazing, but I've got many years experience, and my kind of journey into work and business has been a eventful one. So I've done all sorts of type of jobs. I've worked in very high end spaces like St James's Palace, gentlemen's clubs. I did silver service waitressing. I went on to being a telephonist. I don't even know if people know that what that word is now, but it's working on a switchboard for those who don't know. And then I've worked for governmental organisations. I've worked for housing associations. Then I went into the entrepreneurial space. At for quite a young age, I decided to have a dance club for young people. And I ran that for a little while and we did little shows. Then I had a catering company. Then I did hat making. And then I went into really kind of more kind of on the front line of really supporting people individually and created projects for the NHS, looking at breast cancer awareness. I've done work helping people with their finances, in mentoring them in their finances. So it's always been coming back to really how I could empower people, enable people to shift their mindset and see that they have the abilities and qualities to be the best version of themselves. So now my new initiative is Mindset Reset, which is really, it says what it does on the tin, is to help people to reset their mindset, as well as, working for a company where we support entrepreneurs, new startups, or people who are just thinking about starting a business, helping them along that journey, along that road. So I could go on for ages, but I'm going to leave it there.
No, we're gonna get into some of this stuff, and so adapting to the future, navigating career success is something that, like I said in the intro, we came up with after a couple of conversations, maybe several conversations, and we're looking at some hard skills or lessons you've learned and things that we've come across over our careers or various times, and we just thought, okay, maybe we need to talk about some of these things, maybe in a more structured way, put the information out there, make it a resource for people to actually be able to go to or be able to learn from. Even if it's just one thing they pick off it, they can actually develop or build or grow from that. And so we're going to be looking at that, and we're going to be looking at things around three main headings, which be around goal setting on a personal and professional level. We're going to be looking at things like doing the work, what is required to actually begin to achieve some of those goals. And we're going to be looking at outcomes, both for the business or your career and the organizations you work with, whether you're a freelancer, you're a working professional, or wherever you are in your career, or you own your own business, and your personal outcomes. Am I in the ballpark as to the things we'll be looking at today?
You are right on the ballpark. I think the thing is, we can get caught up with just our own lives and what we want, or get caught up within what work requires. Some of it is like Baba said, whether it's your own business, you're a freelancer, or you work for a company, and it's a mixture of both. I think to be kind of successful in spaces, I think I learned that kind of lesson quite young in my career. So in my career pathways, because then I don't also believe that you have to stick to one career. I think when you've kind of like got to the point where you need to change, then change. When you've got frustrated or you're tired or you're bored with the career path, don't be frightened for change. But I learned from a very kind of early point that when you're working for a company, particularly, the most important thing is to hit their outcomes. What is it that they require from you?
Okay.
And then what can you benefit from that? So what can you learn, what can you do? Is there anything to learn? Even some achievement of the outcome is enough for you. Maybe it's to boost your confidence. Maybe you've gone through a period where you've been knocked, and just being able to achieve that outcome for that company boosts your confidence. But at least that is still a personal outcome for yourself. So I think with our conversations that we had, that we started to see, in terms of my experience and my experience in the different work environments, and Baba's own experience and people that he's in contact with and work with, that there's these threads that we're seeing of similar challenges people are facing, or misunderstanding, or no clarity around why am I here? What am I doing here? And what do I want from being in this space in this time?
Hmm.
So yeah, Baba, I don't know, what
Why am
you.
I here as an individual? So you have to have objectives or goals. I like you have a couple of analogies around that. I'll allow you share those and so on. And also, what is the company trying to do? Who do you need to serve, or who do you need to satisfy, or what do you need to satisfy within your professional world effectively? So those two things. I'll let you speak more into those.
Yeah, I mean, one of the allergies that it's a recent one that sometimes people hear these different terminologies and they don't quite get it. So in terms of knowing where you're going, what outcomes you want to achieve, or um, a goal that you want to achieve, I put it in an analogy like this. It's like getting on a bus with no destination. So it's gonna, if you don't are not clear where you want to go, that bus is going to take you somewhere where you don't want to go, or maybe not beneficial to you, or you could end up going around in a circle. But the decision is not, you've given the decision and the control to somebody else.
Okay. Okay. And that's on the personal level, or also on a professional level. What if you're working in an environment, what things should people look out for? I think we mentioned something around how people's personal goals or what they like or want to do sometimes clash with what they're experiencing at work, and some people have to choose or have to make decisions that sometimes jeopardize or could not enhance their position at work. How would you look at people being able to appreciate what the work goals or what the career goals or business goals or freelancer goals are, and how do they marry that? How do they reconcile that with their own personal objectives?
Well, I think the key thing is you take a job, and these are the type of experiences I'm hearing, not just from myself, my own experience, speaking to other people who are supporting people in their careers, is that you take a job or you take a contract.
Yeah.
There's outcomes and KPIs and all this terminology, but they've asked you to come into this role or take on this contract and to achieve something. And what we're finding is that people are not reading their contracts fully.
Okay.
Or maybe they're not even questioning some of the key things in their contract. They apply for a job or they take a contract. What is it that you're supposed to achieve in that contract?
And how
And
do you know you've achieved it, right? Or things like that nature. Like depth, they need to go into the depth of what qualifies as satisfactory within that job or exceeding and so on and all those things.
Yeah. You know, I've been in situations where people have a clear contract, they have not read it, they are doing things within their job role which is not being required. That's not what required from you from your contract. Maybe that's somebody else's role. Maybe that's somebody else's outcomes. So then you as an individual feel that, but I've done this and this and this, but that's not what was in your contract. That's not what you agreed to when you sorry, when you
But
came into the
yeah,
space.
yeah. Okay. So people need to agree that they need to, so people
Mhm.
need to understand that properly and also discuss it and agree it and understand and be able to say, how do I demonstrate? If they don't understand it, ask questions from those they're working with and say, how do I demonstrate that I've met this objective and that objective? And also keep track of that as they go along themselves so they can help their own development, but more so they can actually demonstrate to the organization that they're hitting the benchmarks they've been set, right?
Yeah, and I think I'm not. Let's not assume that all organisations that you go into are going to be well organised. You know,
Yes.
and let's not assume that
Yeah.
everybody's getting meetings and one-to-ones and the managers sitting down and giving them a work plan. Sometimes it's not like that. It depends on the organisation. It depends on how much finances they have. It depends on whether they are a charitable organization, a CIC or community interest company where, it's all about the caring bit. So sometimes the other targets get put to a side, or is it a corporate organization where, long as, the manager is not managing that well, but your responsibility is to make sure that you keep a record of that. So whether it's in your diary, whether you create a spreadsheet, whether you have a working document, whether you put it in whatever in somewhere in a notebook, that this is what I achieved every day. This is what I did in my job. These are the things that I did. So you've got a account of the work that you've done. If you don't have that, what will happen if somebody is in a role and they're not doing the role properly, they're going to make sure that they're not the person who's going to get thrown under the bus.
Okay, understood.
you
So
know, that's it. They're going to make sure they're not the person who's going to get thrown under the bus. But if you have a account of what you've done, so whether you're a freelancer, whether you, like I said, you've taken on a contract, or whether you're a employee, it's like keep accountability of your work. So if there's any questions come about, you can show evidence of that.
especially now in this very volatile arena we are in this world now, where it seems like there's so many questions being asked about I think more senior people, and then they pass that on to everybody else in the organization. Um, those questions, you'd be able to support your responses or some of your work, and or even if the outcome is still not in your favor, at least you have a body of work that you can demonstrate. You can either put it on your CV, go elsewhere, look for people that might require those services, and say, I can demonstrate I've done this before, and I can actually deliver for you. Is that that would be a good outcome as well for if you keep those kinds of documents.
Exactly, and the thing is that it's. I think, and the thing is, the work environment is changing. So the other thing that I'm seeing is that people might have a method of working which works for them. So maybe they like conversations, they like to talk things out. They call their colleague or call their boss to really understand what their tasks are. But the thing is, where's the record of that? So, I would say to anyone, no matter what the situation in, have the conversation is that's the way you prefer to communicate, but then have evidence to support that. Quick email, as per our conversation, da 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 da. There's your evidence then. So someone comes back and says, well, I didn't say that. Well, I sent you an email confirming the conversation. You didn't respond back at that time to say that you didn't agree what was put in the email. So this is a ill conversation. This is what I said I was going to do. This is what you said you're going to do. And so you never retracted that. You didn't say that it was incorrect. But if you have conversations and you have no way of actually backing that up, when you have to kind of look at, your outcomes in particularly in your work environment, then what are you going to do? So we have to kind of like we're in a time where we need to evidence space that we have delivered what we said we're going to deliver.
Okay. And lastly, so these are some of the techniques, if I could call them that, or strategies that you've described
Yeah.
here. Lastly, on this, before we move on to how to doing the work, there other maybe any other technique that would come to mind? There's so many acronyms and ways of getting work done out there, smart goals and all sorts of other things we have. And like, I mean, sometimes you always say to me, or you say to me, well, people sometimes don't truly fully understand all the stuff. We can all, mimic it, we can all say it, but we probably don't understand the depth of what it means. Was there any other technique you can actually help with in this current environment we're in that you've seen or that you've seen work for people?
I mean, recently, with some of the people that I work with, I think having a work plan, even if it's something that your organization,
Does not have.
doesn't have, I think creating a work plan makes it easy for you to track as well. What has been answered for you and what needs to be done. So that's clear. So, and in that work plan, it just, simple things. What is the task? You
Yeah.
know, when's the deadline date? Needs to be done. I mean,
Yeah.
how long am I allocated to do this task? Particularly I think if you're freelancers as well, you need to these the kind of information that you need to know. Like how much time is allocated to this, or how much time needs to be spent on that. And then even if your job is like you need to know like roughly how long will this take you. And you could just do an average. You could just test it out. If you don't know, you could say, oh, maybe it's an hour, and then you'll come back and say, no, it's actually taking me longer. It's more technical, and and then what is the details of what it is that you want me to do? Again, it's like this real clarity, so that exactly this is what I need to be doing, and this is the date I need to be. It needs to
By
be
this
done.
time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think it needs to be much more complex. I mean, like, there's the SMART goals, and I realize that a lot of people don't understand. They say, yeah, specific, measurable.
Achievable, realistic, and time bound, and all that.
And I realize that I've sat in so many sessions, and a lot of people use SMART goals, but people don't seem to be applying it, or they don't quite understand it, and so they just struggle with just that terminology. And really, it's just making it as simple as possible for you. It's like it's we say it's common sense, but it's not common. If you've never done it before, you don't know. So it's just making it that you can achieve the outcomes that has asked for you, and then there's accountability. If you're supposed to get support with that there's accountability to the other person if they don't support you with that. So you agree it with whoever it is that is your line manager, or the person who's contracted you in, and then if there's any issues, you can have to go back to them and say, look, I can't achieve it because of this, this, and this. And if they don't respond to you, then it's not, the total responsibility is not just solely on you. It's partially on them as well, because that's the agreement that you've made.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to getting the work done. What are the techniques or things that you've seen, maybe some of the issues that maybe you've come across, and sometimes are strategies that can help overcome or compensate or mitigate those issues that help things to be achieved. One of the things I find is, I think if you don't set the goals clearly, you're not quite sure what work needs to be done. So people try to do many things at the same time. I mean, I've also fallen into that in the past, and until I then get to realize, no, let's focus on what the goals are, what's working, and then repeat what's working over and over again, and try and nail that down. And I found results come from there. It takes a while, and then you need to build processes in place and so on, but results come from there. But it doesn't always happen that way for many people because people then are doing different things at the
Mm.
same time. So the work is, what kind of techniques would you, or what have you seen, and what kind of techniques would you suggest, similar to what we discussed earlier on?
Well, I'll give you two examples. I just
Okay. Okay.
yeah, just done a course, and on the course there was an example of like someone who worked for a charitable organization,
Okay.
and this person was the fundraiser, and their target was to fill in 2 applications per month
Okay.
for
Okay.
funding applications. And he was meeting with with not him, their line manager, and they weren't achieving the target. They had loads of excuses to this. They met again. They wasn't achieving the target. So we was giving this kind of as an example, what would you do? And the thing is, it's like, how many times as the person who's managing the situation, how many times are you going to meet with them and they're just giving you excuses?
Right.
So the accountability is that, you have to have that conversation. You have to get the person to understand that. And I think the thing is that also the implications, because I think when people are working for organizations what are funded based or monetary based, if the money doesn't come in, then people can't get paid. So I think if you're in sales, you get a basic, if I'm correct. And then based on the sales, you get commission.
Yeah.
And that commission is probably the reason why you took the job, because that commission will bump your salary up to meet your outgoings in your own personal life. So if people don't understand the fact, if you don't make those 100 phone calls a month,
Yes.
then we're not going to get the sales, and that means you don't get the commission.
Mm-hmm.
And we can assume that people understand it, but I think sometimes people don't. So if you're in an organization or a charitable organization where funding is essential for the running of the organization, then if you're the funder and you're not filling the applications, what is the implication of that? The implication is that you're going to lose your job.
Yes.
And I think, within that, it doesn't have to be, because otherwise, if we say it too many times as someone maybe who's employing people, then it could be like come across as a threat, or create anxiety or make people fearful. But at some points along the journey of the work, you need to be letting people know that there's implications when you don't do something. So there's a reason why we're not just actually do it for the sake of doing it. We're actually do it so that all the organization or company can run, and you can get the benefit of, one, you get your commission, or if you're a fundraiser, you keep your job. So I think there's that clarity within it, and then it's this like, how long do you as a manager, you keep something going on for? So is it that are you asking the questions? Are you asking a reason why are you not achieving? What is there something that you need to share? Is there something going on that I'm not aware of? What is stopping you from achieving these outcomes? And then looking at how often do I check in with that person? So again, for either the person comes to you and says like, I need to have to keep me on track, I need to have just a touch point once a week until I get my mojo going, and then I'll be fine. And then once a month check-in will be fine, because I've got some challenges. Or you go in as a manager and say, look, you're not achieving the thing. Let's work on one together. Or I'll check in with you weekly and see how you're going. Or show me the application that you're working on. So I think it's a two-way process of like. And I think it's not always works like that in organizations. But I think as the person who is the potential of not getting your outcome, which is your salary, you have to kind of decide like what part of it you're going to play. And if you don't play that part, then understand the consequences. But the consequences of that has to be explained to you. And I think, like you said, I think a lot of the time things are not clear. Things are just not clear to people. And I think there's a assumption that people know or they remember.
Okay. My thing, I know you had two examples. I'll let you say the second one. Also, in that particular example you've explained, I wonder if providing resources, right, and training for instance, if we carry on with the example of someone that is meant to be providing helping with funding, and that's their primary function within an organization that relies solely on funding, like is there a database they can go to? Is there a particular way they write applications? Are there events where the people that actually support things, organizations such as a go to, that they could actually figure out? I think those are the kind of conversations and resources that would help actually increase the chances of being successful or doing the work properly. Now, if after all of that, you have a database of 2,000 providers in the United Kingdom, for instance, and you have 10 events every month, or and so on and all that. And if then we're not seeing we're not getting anywhere, the applications are still not going out or going in, or there's no progress being made, then I think several conversations need to be had to assess the other. Or am I sort of on the right track in terms of resources? And I mean, you've explained the support, check-ins, and so on with more senior people that can help guide the way.
Yeah, I think it all, obviously we was presenting the scenario. So it depends on where the person's come in. So if you come in and you say you're experienced fundraiser, that's a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
If you've already been given the resources,
Okay.
that's a bit of the problem. If you have come in and you said, you really want to do this job, but you're not really experienced, but you're really good at talking to people and you're really good at research, then yes, those two things needs to be addressed. Maybe some training needs to be done. The access to where the funders are, what funding they can apply for needs to be given, or support needs to be given for them to identify that. With filling in the applications, then again, some support may be needed to fill in the application when the person hasn't got that much experience. So I think it depends on what, and if the thing is, this is experiences that I've had. People are coming into job roles where they know they don't have the qualifications, they know they don't have the experience.
Okay.
But they're very good at getting into, getting past the interview stage and getting a job. Because there's, some people are much more better at interviews and testing and doing presentations than other people. But doesn't mean they actually can do the job. They're just good. They're good at doing the process of getting a job.
Okay.
And so sometimes it is showing up in, and not meeting the outcomes. So I think so. Even within your that's a whole different line. But I think
okay,
sticking in with this particular kind of situation is that we just need to identify where the person is at, and then how best we can help that person. And like you said, some of the things is like, what resources can we make available to the person? And also, the person kind of recognize, I don't have this skill set. I'm having a confidence to say like, oh, is it possible I can go and or some training, or I'm not really good at the writing parts, and maybe a report writing, or there is specific
courses
for people for fund for filling in funding applications. So it's being proactive. So we're talking about back to the individual. It's being proactive to see where your weaknesses are and how you can get support and of improving them. So
and we should sorry, go on. And we should take advantage of these opportunities, especially people that are working with, because I think these are skills you acquire and they become yours. They're not, you become better at it, and you can actually, 2-3 years time, 5 years time, you can actually raise your hand and say, I'm an expert at this, something you didn't have going in. And sometimes we lose sight and don't take advantage of those opportunities because we see them as a weakness that might maybe create a bad impression on who we are, rather than an opportunity actually to build on where we are to get into something else later down the line.
Yeah, and one thing we did talk about when we had a rather long conversations on this topic, hence us being here today, is that most organisations, I won't say all, because sometimes with charitable or CICs that don't have the money, but they've always got a training budget for each individual. And we were talking about it, that a lot of the time these training budgets are not being used.
So
So then,
people should ask for that if the organization has a training budget wherever they work
yeah,
in.
so for
And
yeah, so and then how much that is. So sometimes the training budget is per person and it's capped. But if they like you, you never know. It
yeah,
might pay.
discretionary. Yeah.
Yeah. So if they really
And
think,
there's a lot of free resources out there as well. There's a lot of loads of
yeah,
very good
but
resources.
first of all, within your company, tap into that. You know what I mean? And so if there's a £200 budget for training, tap into that and use that to get your training. And then, like you said, there is a lot of free resources. But it means you've been also disciplined. So when you finish work, you're going to be doing it in your own time. Or you can say to your company, look, I know you don't have a training budget, but would you give me the time to go and do training, and it will be of no cost to you? So they may give you the time off that will be in your working time to go and get training done, but it's not going to be any cost to them. So
Or
that you can
sometimes
take
that's
it
what
out of your working time instead of taking it out your personal time. Because if it's for specifically to do with the job you're doing, then it should come out of your work time.
when I was trained as an accountant, there were firms that or there were companies that you'd say, look, I want to go finish or do my accounting qualification. You're in an accounting role anyway, or tax role or something, and you're like, I need to go do my qualifications. I'm not asking you for any money, but once I qualify, I would ask for a bit of time in the evenings, or maybe close at 4 instead of 5, so I can get to the accounting class. And also maybe once I finish, would you reimburse me? Or is there usually there's a promotion wrapped up in there somewhere, usually
Mhm.
for like you bump people up a level. And so those used to exist. In corporate, when I used to be in corporate, I sound like talking about 1960s here, but
No,
those,
Baba.
those, those
35 knows.
those used to exist, and I don't know if they still do, but I think people would benefit from at least asking. I think the fear always was, and when I was working, this was also a fear, that if you mention things like that, there were people who thought you were ambitious, so yeah, you were going to leave. I mean, the companies where we used to say, or HR driver spoke to in the past, always said, "Have we trained this guy? I'll pay for their training. They're off." Now, some companies normally have like a period when you can't leave if they pay for
Yeah,
your training, and so that requires your services for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, whatever. Still, there's things that recoup their money, but it's all agreed up front. So it's good to always good to have that conversation and at
yeah,
least put it out there and say, look, I'm trying to improve myself and improve the organization. And if you do well, you mention your organization. Some people want accounting prizes and say, I work for this company, and give the company good PR, right? That they're supporting prizes, and they scored very highly. That wasn't me,
mm,
but so a lot of people did. So yeah, so there are different. I think there are many different ways around that people need to explore, and
yeah,
hopefully,
yeah. If you want to, and if it's not what you want to do, then the other way of doing it is have a good network of friends. So if you don't know how to do your job effectively, get a friend to help you out
yeah,
who's in that field. So you as an accountant, I've worked in. I might say I'm developing, um, which I've done before. So for example, when I did the innovative project for the NHS, and I had an idea of putting this project together. And I have a friend who's a professional storyteller, so that's what she
okay,
does. She's done it most of her life as a professional, and she gets paid very well because it,
yeah,
it, it leads into a lot of different things, running
yes,
courses, giving talks,
yeah,
doing plenaries at big events, all these sorts of things. So I said, I work with her. So we create this whole structure of this project around storytelling and enabling women to tell the stories. But I worked with her. So sometimes it's like you don't have to have all the answers.
hmm
But you should have a resource, a people resource around you that you can tap into,
yeah,
and
yeah,
you can access it that way. So all of us are different. I think the climate, and this is why we start this conversation, is about it's understanding the work climate has changed
hmm.
dramatically. So and I was saying that, the way I stay relevant is to make myself indispensable. So if I'm in an environment, it's like make yourself indispensable. Just like do well at what you do. You don't have to go outside of your job if you don't want to, but do well at the, if you're in a job, just do well at what you do. So if your job is target driven, hit your targets. No, when we talked about, when cuts happen and things like that, normally that it can change normally, and this is the other thing about upskilling. So I'm talking about normally it's the people who are not doing well. They're going to look at everybody's work and think like, we're going to keep the people who are hitting targets and get rid of the ones who are not really doing that great. But the things have changed so much that even recently I was talking to a friend, and she said in a company where she works is that they actually got rid of the person who was hitting the highest target because they was one of the
Saves the
higher
company
earners.
money.
So that's what I'm saying to you. The work environment has
Wow.
dramatically changed. She said she was shocked because they got rid of her, and then I think they got rid of her my friend's
Number two.
boss. And so it's that. So even so, that is why is the us talking about training and not being complacent is really important. So it's about making sure that you are in a position that if anything happens, that you could get enough a job or get enough a contract. So if you're up to speed with whatever is going on in your particular field, and something like that, you've worked hard, you're hitting your targets, whatever, but because you earn the most money and they have to make monetary cuts, you're going to be one of the ones have to go because they're going to save the most money with you. So the person who's on, we just make it simple. Someone who's on 25 grand, they're going to keep, and the one person who's on 50 grand, they're going to have to go. So, but what position have you put yourself in? Have you kept up to date? Or you just put your head down and totally focus on the job and not thought about like, well, how do I keep my own development going? Am I up to speed with what's going on in the industry? Do I know what's happening in these different fields, or if there's new technology, do I understand that? And this is, this thing of, new technology, and which is, sometimes there's a big struggle. I said to you that, I've been in situations where people not even kind of quite understand how to navigate Excel. So talking to them about AI, things like that, is going to be totally, it's like another planet to them. It's like another universe.
Yeah.
So it's this thing of like, even if you're in your role, it's like making sure that you, I think I'm trying to think of the word you say, like, protect yourself. Like, it's not protect yourself, but you you risk assess, like, what is going to happen if this happens. It's like we talked about, like reading the landscape.
Yes.
You
You have
so
to read the landscape.
yeah,
Things have really changed a lot. Yeah. I was telling you about a friend who said they sacked a whole team, a whole department in his big organization. And he just told himself, I'm buckling down, and I'm going to make sure I do everything my boss and my boss's boss, because he works for both of them. Everything they say, just make them happy. And so on, that they will like me by the end of this. They'll really, really like me. I'm not be able to do without me. That was what he said.
Make
Like,
themselves indispensable. Like, they can't operate unless
for
I'm
next
around.
3 months, or next 6 months. That's what he said.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I know.
that's reading the landscape. I mean, sometimes things still happen, but at least there's a reaction from that, and that is gonna not be, I agree with what you say. That's a real conversation people need to be having, at least with themselves, if not even externally with other people. So
yeah, and when they say reading the landscape, it's like sometimes you're not privy to things in your particular company, but you can reading the landscape is like what's happened generally within this field. Has there been a shift? It's like, oh, okay, AI. So maybe in your industry, it's like the shift is happening is more companies are replacing people and getting AI in. For example, I said to you about a friend of mine. She worked front of house, very good salary, but it was an investment bank. Very good salary, and they've made all of them redundant because they brought in an agency staff for probably, a
Unless, yeah.
yeah, a lot, a third, probably third less, if not more, than what they're paying for them. And their package was amazing. Other than it's very high paid reception work, but I was told that in the investment bank, that's the kind of money you would get. But you're talking about private healthcare. She had 2 operations done on her knees, which she went to private hospital. Clothes allowance, this, gym, blah blah. The companies now are not offering that anymore.
So you have to figure out how to get the work done and keep up to date and upskill yourself, tool yourself up. And we never know what's going to happen, but not out of fear. I think it's more for me. I think it's out of believing in yourself and being able that whatever
Yeah.
comes, you'll be able to deliver. You'll be able to navigate what's going on, which is, I guess, what part of our topic today, adapting and navigating career success. Yeah.
Exactly. So we was going to also talk about because I don't know if we've quite covered it, the goal setting part.
Yes.
So I think it's really important in terms of, so we're talking about achieving the goals of what your job requires, the
Yes.
tasks and the things and outcomes. But I think that also it's really important to talk about or to look at and reflect on your own personal goals. So Barbara was going to me, someone's goal is just to go on holiday every year, then it'd be good to say to them about going to training. No, if your goal is to go on holiday every year, that's what you work for, go for it. But then how is that you're going to measure it? So is it that your aim is that every year you go to somewhere better? Is it that your goal is that every year you'll be able to go for longer? You'll be able to do more things. What's your goal with going on holiday every year? That's your main goal for working, is to go on holiday. But how's that measurable? And how is your work then going to support that? So if your job does not increase it doesn't, your wages don't increase, but as we have seen with the changes within the world, that everything has gone up. So if your wages are not going up, but your holiday is getting more expensive, how's that going to work?
Yeah.
So this is where we start marrying our own personal goals with the goals of in our job. So you may not want to do anything else. So maybe you love the job that you're doing, but that job does not increase in salary. So but for you to achieve your personal goal, you have to then think about, okay, how can I increase my salary? Is it that I move departments because this other department, they pay more for similar type of role? Or do I go up to the next role up because that's going to pay me more money, but I don't have to take on too much responsibility, but I have to know something else about the field of work that I'm in, so that I can meet the target, my goal of being able to maintain my holidays. So I think the goals, it doesn't matter what the goal is. I just think, how do you measure it personally, and being clear about that, and then how that you then achieve them goals in the workplace, that you can have that balance. You have the lifestyle that you want, or you want to buy a house, you want to buy a car, you want to go and I don't know, go and do a degree, whatever it is that you want to do. But then in terms of your work, what is the goals that you need to achieve in work to be able to maintain that? What do you need to do? And I think the goals in work is really important, because I think with me, I'm very clear about why I'm going to do something. So, why am I going to do a podcast? What's my reason for doing a podcast? And I'm having that clear kind of, like, I'm doing it because I want to get to here. I want to do this. I want to also be able to tell people about the services I offer. So if you're in your job, it's like, you take the job, but for what reason are you taking the job? And I'm talking to people, and I think especially people who get to mid-age, where a lot of the labels have dropped off. So they don't need to be the type of mother or father that they need to be anymore, because their children now are university, or they're married and have got their own families. They don't have to be the carer no more, because maybe that loved one has gone into a care home, or they've passed away. some changes have gone in your life. So it's like, what is then what is the goals you want? What is the goals that you want to achieve for yourself now? Because so sometimes people have to keep the same job because of the responsibility outside of work, but now the responsibilities is not so heavy on them. What is it that you want to achieve within your career path and within your personal life? What is just for you? It's just now about you. And sometimes we need support to really to start to reassess that, because we've lost it along the way because of all the different labels that we've had to take on. So I think this thing of really goal setting and being know why you're there, because I think it makes you much more secure. I've been around people where they don't clearly know why they're in a job or why they've taken on a contract. And so then they're all over the place and they kind of become very fearful. So it's all just about, how do I hold on to this contract? How do I hold on to this job? Instead of, how do I thrive and grow from this job? Or how do I thrive and grow so I can get, better contracts? I've seen that this has become really essential. And like I said, people who are in that mid age, I would say maybe probably late 40s to 60s. This is these are the people that I'm talked to, whether it's in my work or within my friend circles. And I've seen more and more people that are struggling with this element. And this is something that is really, in terms of moving your life forward and becoming happier. Let's use this word. What we're here for. We're here to be happy, and it's that you need to be clear about this area of what goals you want to achieve. And we can change the word goals. It's just where are you going? Where do you want to be in your life? Because I know with this, people say, oh, goals, and it's like very kind of like, oh, you got to be doing. It's not doing, but it's like like the bus analogies. Like, where do you want to get to? If I want to go to Oxford Street, I need to get on a bus that says Oxford Street or goes past Oxford Street or go in the vicinity of Oxford Street. There's no point of me getting on a bus and I'm in South London and I'm getting a bus that's going to North London. That's not going to get me near to Oxford Street, because that's not the destination of where that bus is going.
Lastly on that, I know we mentioned that we'll maybe look a little deeper into that particular category of people in mid careers or towards the end of their careers and so on on another time. But I know we spoke about processes and systems, and you kindly reframe that and say it's more like, let's explain the activities required for people to do and the order in which they could do them, which means the same thing, processes and systems in many ways. And do you want to speak a little to that, and then we'll move on to outcomes and hopefully wrap things up shortly?
Yeah, I think with the processes system, again, in recent time, in the past year, I've seen that when you don't have proper process and systems in place, it creates confusion. So, and the process system, like Baba said, is like, what activities are you going to do? And in what order are you going to do them? So, for instance, an example of that is in my particular my day job, is that we had where we go out and we do outreach work, and it's like, and I just realised that the way it was being done, it was kind of like sporadic. It's like jumping around, and then but that takes a lot of time. You're covering in a wide Spencer area, and and it would be better we take a systematic approach. So we go to a town, an area within in London, and then we saturate it. So we're going to be in Islington. So we go to Islington, and we go to all the organisations in it. So we connect with all the people. Maybe we go to some events and everything, and we've done that. We saturate that. We move to the next area, and we do the same thing and have a systematic approach. Because then tick. Have we contacted most organisation we can? Is it? And yes, barring these two. Okay, we can revisit them another time, and then we go to another area and take this organised, systematic approach to achieving a target of making sure that everybody's aware of what we are doing. And I think, this type of approach can really, it can be, because obviously you've got organize, the
Yeah.
system and how you're going to do it. And
Hmm.
that takes time. And I think that's where people get bored, a bit frustrated. But when you see the results, and the thing is, we could compare the results. So it's like same time last year, what did we achieve? The same time this year, and it was like doing that systematic approach. We had trebled, no, it was maybe double to treble the amount of people we actually connected with, and who how we know we connected with them because they registered. So we know in doing that systematic approach. So that's a measurable thing. Try something different. What is the results after that same period of time that you did it same time last year? And then you know whether a process or system. And then if it's not working as you hoped it to do, you can adjust it, but you've got something to work with. You've got something to adjust. And I think this is a really important. It's like, and I mentioned it before. It's about, again, it kind of connects onto outcomes. It's like, this hard work thing that's been thrown around. You see a lot of these, entrepreneurs who are selling courses. And like,
Work smarter, not harder.
hard. They say work hard. If you work hard, and it's
Yeah,
like
the hustle
some of the
culture.
most hard working people on this planet are the lowest paid. So this
Yes.
is a myth. It's about how we can work smart and use our time in a way that doesn't mean by the time we finish work, we are totally exhausted, that we can actually enjoy life. So I think it's this real, like I said, there's a mindset shift to, like, find, and that's what, and that's a whole other conversation. But I'm a person I'm very different because I grew up with computers. So if I won't reveal my age, but if I talk about binary code, zeros and ones,
Yeah.
I that's what I studied. I was 13. So with me adopting to new technologies, it's never been a problem. But I know other people in my age group, it's a major, major problem. But that's what AI can enable you to collapse time. AI enables you to shorten the processes
Okay.
so that
And
you
in the personal lives as well, not just business, we need to organize the activities and in what order in our personal lives as best as possible as well.
yes, so that we're not doing spending hours and hours doing mundane things. You can spend your 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 time away from your job doing other things. Maybe you have a business. Maybe you like giving time to your local church or your local synagogue or your local mosque, or you want to do charitable work. It allows you to time to do other things. So let's not. I know it's a challenge, and I'm not saying to people you must use AI, but I'm saying look at systems that will enable you to save you time or save you energy, so that you can enjoy your life more and access the things and do the things that you like doing more, even in these for some people challenging times, because it's not challenging for everyone, but for
No.
some people these challenging times. It's there is a way. And yes, it can be difficult. I'm not saying it can't be difficult, but I think there is a way that we can access and enrich our life and move our life forward without being so, I think, stressed out and tired.
Okay. Now, lastly, outcomes. What are the ways we can? And I know we mentioned them in the first two
Yeah.
bits in passing, but
Mhm.
what kinds? How important are they, and what are some of the techniques or strategies or ways we can deploy outcomes to make them serve us, to make them beneficial to us as individuals and as an organization or working with an organization?
I think I mentioned before that when we achieve our outcomes, it's a boost to our confidence. When you kind of like you go into your monthly meeting or appraisals, and they said, "Oh, you've achieved it." It boosts your confidence when you've achieved your outcomes. It enables an organisation to keep on growing. That their staff members are achieving the outcomes in the organisation. It enables organizations that are charitable or funding based to continue when you achieve your outcomes, and outcomes enables you to see whether what you're doing has been effective.
Hmm.
So it's interesting because I went to Barbados, and I was talking to a friend who's a business friend, and now a friend who was over here, and she's gone back to Barbados to work. And she was sharing with me that, some in a lot of the kind of type of community based type of organizations, and they're working with people on the ground, including like people business startups, that don't really collect statistical information. So they will just deliver something, and that'll be it. And I was like, really? He goes, no, they don't, that's not the culture. And I'm like, so there's no accountability to just get money, and there's no kind of like even basic information like people's details, like, very normal things that we're collecting: people's name, maybe their age bracket, information maybe about their background or where they started and where they're at, and then come able to track it, like how has the offer has helped them in whatever way, how have they progressed.
Hmm.
And she said, oh, no, you find that, they don't really, even if they collect information, won't be into that detail. So I think, how do you track that you're successful?
Yeah.
Just getting money and then just spending it and getting money accessible, but you don't even know even what the work you're doing is impactful. If it's actually um, creating any value anywhere. And
Hmm.
I think this is the thing, and I think the same if it's in your work or your personal life, it's like, how do you measure your outcomes? If you I don't know, if you go away on holiday and you come back and you're just as stressed out as you went.
If that was your objective, right? If the holiday was a key top big thing, and so on. Maybe if you get a bigger house all the time. I'm just joking, but generally,
Yeah, but as I said, if you go on a holiday and but then if you don't have no outcome to your holiday, then you can come back stressed. I've seen it myself. Coming
yes.
back from Barbados, and I saw people, and there was just like a small things were making them really angry, and I'm like, well, what was the point of your holiday?
Hmm. And that happens a lot. So we need to set out outcomes, and we need to understand how to measure them, like you said, and also for the organization and organizations we work with or work for, and determine how impactful we are getting or we are, and so on. And those are the things that sometimes funny enough, we lose sight of, because the I think one of the things that in the recent past I've come to grapple with a little bit is the concept of feelings being almost more important than other things. Feelings is very important. I'm not saying it,
Mm,
like you mentioned, gives you
mm.
confidence. Confidence is partly a feeling that you've done something. But I always think that for me, outcomes help feed into that. They help, like you said, they help give you that measure of I don't use your confidence, that measure of certainty that we did X, Y, Z, especially if you tracked what you were doing, and
Mhm.
we got this. So if we do X, Y, Z again, hopefully we'll get this. And then if we
Mhm.
add on to that something else, one, two, three, then that might actually either bump that up. So we can measure it, we can check it every 2 months, 3 months, every month. We can say, we did that 2 months ago and this was all we got, and we did it again. And so we're almost certain this works like this. Then we layer with this, and then it's brought it down. They'll say, oh, okay, hold on. Let's take the layering out. Do we get back to that? So you're testing constantly, effectively, experimenting in some ways. Some things are certain, obviously, but then you're building. That's how you build. And you do something else, and then it shoots it up. You're like, okay, that's what we want. So I love that. That makes more sense. If you show me a set of numbers, they sort of make more sense to me than me listening to our presentation on the same thing in some ways because
Yeah,
of
and
the
I
way
think I think we also talked about in terms of it, and especially when we're communicating. I mean, this is, and again, and that's another conversation. But particularly when we're communicating with people about outcomes or things that we need to achieve, and then what outcomes will be, is that you need to be aware of who you're speaking to. So if you're speaking to Baba, he wants to hear figures. Um, if you're speaking to someone who's head of finances, they want to hear figures.
yes.
They don't want to hear about no feelings.
Mm.
They're not interested in feed. They
From your
want to know how.
experience.
They want to know what's the minuses and what's the pluses.
Yes,
That's all they're interested in. You know what I mean? How many people did you meet? And what was the
their
outcome from
commitment.
that?
What did
You
they
know what I
commit
mean?
to?
And if it's
How
a
much money
financial
they commit
thing,
to put down?
yeah, how much money got, how much money came in. They don't really want to know what money came out, but that's feedback, you know. And I think this is the other thing about outcomes: is feedback. It's having been open to feedback, no matter who you are. So whether you're the employee, whether you're the freelancer, or whether you're the manager or the CEO, and I think, you know, and I mean, I've seen in many spaces that people don't really want to always hear feedback, but
Yes,
feedback is about how you develop and grow
yes,
and achieve better outcomes.
it is.
So this is all interconnected. But like I said, that can be a whole different kind of thing about, you know, doing feedback, how to feedback, you know, what we feedback. But and again, but that also goes back to your processes and systems, because that
Mm,
should be built in within that as well.
mm.
And we should, you know, we need to get kind of if we really want to grow as people, yeah, we need to get feedback. Like it'd be great we get feedback. You know, people see this podcast and go, oh yeah, the feed, oh yeah, we like this. We, you know, we go like, okay, then we're along the right lines. If we don't get no feedback, we don't even know whether people are interested in what we've shared. So you know, let's not be frightened for feedback.
And also feedback that says, "Nah, I don't know what you guys were talking about. That's not the
Any
topic."
feedback, positive,
Feedback
negative.
is good. It's very good. I mean, I have a course on effective communication that I released, and part of it was that, and the saying feedback and testing understanding. And like you said, any feedback is actually very important. It actually helps you. Some of the feedback, who was it? Someone said something about companies that rather than hire management consultants, they actually release products when they're very raw, when they're not ready, and so everybody complains about them and say, oh, why didn't you guys do it this way, the other way, the other way? And literally they're using all those complaints to improve the product rather than pay any of the big consulting firms millions and tens of millions. So the customers have helped, they paid for the initial product. Now they've given them feedback and helped them improve the product. And say, oh, what about this now? Say, no, you could still improve. And what about that now? And more, and until they get the product right, or they do something different with it. And you're right, feedback is what helps you grow and improve, and that's a good example.
And I think and I think a company like that, you're getting the feedback from the right people.
The people
The
paying
consultants not going to probably use their, you know what I mean, whatever their
tools, their templates.
yeah template or tool is.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
should
the
say there. I'm one
consultant
of
that,
them. I worked for I worked for those firms for a while, so I'm one of them. But yeah, you're right. It just come up with
yeah.
with
I think there's a
with the dust of the old name and replace it with the new company name.
yeah. I mean, it's the thing is, and I've seen this in large organisations, big organisations where they implement a new system, but the people that who at the actual user end of it was never
They're not involved.
consulted.
Yeah,
You know, so you're getting somebody who's a CEO or director or whatever making a decision about something that they never use. So they don't know exactly what the end user needs to get out of it and what that end user needs to share with maybe members of the public. And then when it comes down to it, they've implemented it, and now that information or how that tool needs to be used can't be used because they've selected the wrong one. So is this, let's be aware of like who's giving you feedback, and all feedback you don't have to take on board. That's the other thing.
yeah, that's true.
It isn't going to serve your outcome, because sometimes people they're feeding back to you, but it's not in it's not
Constructive.
for your benefit.
It's not your benefit.
And it could be constructive, and they're not criticizing, but it is actually to say it's just to say it because I just want to say it because I don't particularly like you, and so I don't want you to think that you've done something really well. So I'm going to have to say something. So you have to be kind of aware of as well, like who's giving you feedback and what's that intentions behind it. But yeah, I think outcomes are, really it's really important. It's really important to you be aware and know what the outcomes, whether it's your personal ones or the company ones. You need to know what they are, and then work towards them.
Okay. Lastly, before we go and talk about how people can reach you and what the work you do for people and so on, I know you've mentioned and if you have anything else that maybe we haven't covered, I was going to say that I found that people sometimes are not very open to, like, I know we spoke about you have to be open to feedback. No, people want to just receive positive kind of information, which is good. I mean, that's
Mm,
okay,
mm, mm, mm,
but
mm.
I think there's a risk there. I know people sometimes are nasty and so on, but you have to be able to whittle out and filter out what is real, like you said, that kind of feedback that maybe someone just giving it because they don't like you, even though they've couched it in something else, or what is beneficial to you. That key thing, as in what is beneficial to you, where you are, the stage you're in.
Mm,
The
mm,
example
mm.
I'll give is when I started making my courses, and I won't say by any means I'm the best course maker or course builder, whatever out there. Definitely not. But I realized my limitations right from the off. And I said, but those limitations are not enough or should not stop me. It's not
Mm.
cumulative. It's I can make courses within these limitations, and then the price tag will be that, the marketing will be that. I'm going to target a certain group of people, and everybody needs to do that. I sometimes find people want to start at, for instance, what the big tech firms are today, and forget how the big tech firms started 20,
Exactly.
25 years ago, when they're all in
Exactly.
garages or one desk and nothing. There's stuff out there about the Amazon founder when he had one desk and he had this thing hanging on the wall, right? A banner of Amazon. That was the whole office, and yet they were talking. So you need to realize and start from that, and then take that feedback on board that fits into your growth, your processing plan, and some of the things we're talking about, and that use that to fuel and to actually add to your growth, till you're actually able to get to where you want to get to. So, and I find people comparing themselves to people that have finished product that have been doing it for 20 years, 25. I'm like, you
Mm.
don't need to do that. So you take
No.
the feedback and you hold it. If you can't do it right now, no need to respond. Just hold it to hand. Use it as a goal, a motivation. Do what you can within the place you're in, but keep going as much as you can. Find the right people around you, and
Mm.
hopefully those will be able to help you. So, if there's anything we haven't covered, please feel.
No, I was gonna say, I was
Yeah,
just gonna say to you, like, yeah, look, I wasn't one who didn't like feedback
yeah,
because I looked at it because of maybe other things. I looked at it as like criticism. So we, when we are getting feedback and we're reacting in a certain way, work through that, your reaction. If you need to get help and seek some sort of counseling or some sort of go on a sort of program
coaching.
to why am I reacting like this? But staying with that, it hinders you.
Hmm.
So I know I was hindered because I thought it was a criticism.
Me too. Many years ago, I think 10 years ago, I think I would have reacted badly to certain things. So, no, I love it. As
I
in,
was like, you
it's
know what I
free,
mean?
free
If you
thing.
tell me you don't like my red dress and my gold necklace, I'm like, okay, then give me a suggestion looks better,
Yeah,
what you think looks better on me, and let me test it out.
yeah.
Let me
Send me
try
what.
it out.
Send me money to buy. And
Yeah, it's just like, you know,
uh,
thinking,
I always say, come as you
you
are.
get me,
I always tell people, come
give
as
me
you
a
are.
gift,
If you don't like it, send money here. Or send a gift.
send me
Anyway,
a
so
gift. I'm like, a real gold necklace, Well, I'm not saying this is not real, but I'm just saying. But it's this thing of but I think it's this thing of like we have to acknowledge where we're at, and that's important. Where am I at right now? So how am I? The way I receive everything, even this podcast, how am I receiving it? Is depends on where I'm at right now. Where am I at in my life? Where am I at in myself? And then it's like, so I'm maybe reacting negatively to someone with something because of where I'm at. And so what is it bringing up for me? Well, go and deal with that thing, because it's like, we're here to enjoy life, we're here to be happy. That's the whole kind of the reason why we do all this. We're working, we're doing this podcast. Why are we doing this podcast? Because we want people to improve. We want people to feel better and happier, and maybe a bit more enjoyable about the things that they're doing in their life. And I think, but you have to do your work. So this is when we go back to that thing of doing your work. So, and I've had to do my work. I've had to, and I'm sure I've always going to have work to do. I love learning anyway, but there's always going to be ongoing work to do. It's like maintaining anything, isn't it? Like, well, we know with our
That's true.
roads, they're always doing maintenance on the roads,
Yes.
even when we don't understand why, but they're always doing maintenance. And I think the same for us. There's always some maintenance, there's always some work to be done. And it's not a negative thing. It's, you know what I mean? It means that you're growing, you're improving, you're developing, you're having more understanding, you can connect more. So yeah, I think it's really important. So, in my work is that's what I want to do for people, and even with organizations, is that help people to accelerate what they where they want to get to. So really looking at how I can help people who are ready to take action, but then they need that support and help them to accelerate that even quicker. So I see myself as like a human AI. I will hack you and accelerate you to where you want to be, and help you to identify the things that you need to do to get to where you want to be even quicker. So yeah, and if anyone wants to contact me, you can contact me through LinkedIn. We're talking about goal setting. That's one of the courses that I will be delivering. I'll let everyone know the date when that's going to be available. So because I think especially for people in who's gone through their like a midlife situation where there's a lot of changes, like reassessing everything and having a clear direction of where you want to go next. There's maybe some unpacking and understanding and revisiting that you need to do to know that where you want to go in the future. So if that's something that you think can benefit you or your company or your team, then you can contact me through LinkedIn.
Okay. So thanks everyone, and both our profiles will be up, and you can reach out to us if you have any questions or you need any work or services, and we'll be happy to respond. Thank you very much, Rosalyn. And
Thank you,
finally,
Baba.
we've got to document some of our conversations that have been offline. We'll put them
Exactly.
online, and we can become a resource for many people for a very long time to come. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.